Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, quite a few different styles under both their original name and their new name, and the one that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I've not had from them before. It's a sub-style as well that I very much enjoy, so I have to say I'm very curious to see how this one turns out. So hopefully it's another good beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. For this review then, we are going to head up toward the Stockholm area once again. We're going to go to the southwest of the city to Ekerö, and we're having a look at another beer from Northern Exposure Brewing Company, previously known of course as Nordic Kiwi Brewers. So this particular beer is called the Transatlantic Express. It comes in at 9% ABV, it's an Imperial coffee stout, and it's been conditioned with Nitro. So yeah, very, very interesting. It's also brewed in collaboration with Stockholm Roast, whom I understand have provided the coffee beans. So yeah, this should be a really interesting beer. I think my very first Imperial stout from these guys, and also my first Nitro conditioned beer from them as well. So yeah, quite a bit different from what we've had from these guys before, I have to say. But as you'll know if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I love a coffee stout. I really got into these on the back of trying the Key and the Sidamo Dim2 that Dugis Brewery did a few years ago. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one though. Always nice to return to Northern Exposure Brewing Company. This beer was released as part of the Lokal och Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden. I think this one might have been released in March of 2021. It could have been April, but I think it might have been March. In fact, I've had this beer sitting in my fridge for a little while actually, but being an Imperial stout, that's not such a big deal of course. But yeah, like I said, very curious to see how it turns out, so let's get cracking with this one. As always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website and the link to my other reviews that I've done from Northern Exposure Brewing Company, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. We'll also put the Stockholm Roast link down there as well for you to look at, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Northern Exposure Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So this brewery, of course, was founded as Nordic Kiwi Brewers, and they're based in Ekerö to the west of Stockholm, and the company was founded by two New Zealanders, Craig Donovan and Karen Beattie, back in 2014. So apparently they began homebrewing because Swedish beer is, well, they said it was very expensive, although I'm surprised at that because I thought beer in New Zealand was actually more expensive than it is here. But they began buying hops from Nelson in their native New Zealand to use in the beers. So they set up a commercial brewery in a room using equipment that they found mainly on Blocket, which is essentially the Swedish Craigslist for those of you watching abroad. But Karen apparently met his Swedish lady in New Zealand, and then the pair moved to London together, and he spent some time working in the construction industry before they went to Sweden. Karen, on the other hand, Karen was working full-time at the brewery initially, while Craig was working part-time and for Ericsson, the big telecommunications company. But the niche of this brewery in the early days was that they brewed all their beers with only New Zealand hops, although since 2017 they have been both working full-time at the brewery, and they've really scaled up the production over the last little while. In late 2018 though, they moved to a larger premises, still in Ekerö though, and that year they brewed around 100,000 litres, and they managed to double that over the course of 2019 from what I understand. They also hired a new Kiwi brewer, should we say, to join them at the brewery, and they installed a new brew kit too. But at the end of 2019 they made the decision to change their name to Northern Exposure Brewing Company, saying that Swedish people just didn't get the kind of Kiwi reference, if you like, the Nordic Kiwi Brewers. They thought, Northern Exposure Brewing Company was just you know, a better name that more people would understand. People just didn't get that the kiwi was one of the symbols of New Zealand. But they also started using hops from elsewhere and not simply from New Zealand, although there are quite a lot of New Zealand hops in their beers still, of course. But they've continued to scale up over the last little while, and as of May 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have released around 35 different kinds of beer under the Northern Exposure name, and I think there's roughly about the same, maybe a little bit more, were released under the Nordic Kiwi Brewers name. So they've maybe done somewhere in the region of like 80 or 90 different beers in total. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Northern Exposure Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, probably my favourite beers from these guys so far, it would be the Dolphin Love. That's a very, very impressive New England Hazy IPA, and that's one of their flagship beers, of course, so I would recommend that you check that one out should you get the chance. But yeah, let's crack on then and see how we get on with this beer. So, like I said earlier, this one is a 9% Imperial Coffee Nitro Stout, I guess we can say, brewed in collaboration with Stockholm Roast, and apparently it uses a blend of South American coffee beans. So, as I've explained to you in other coffee stout reviews, coffee beans are one of the most interesting adjuncts that you can put in beer. You know, it depends, you've got different soil compositions, different water compositions that can all affect the flavours, but then, you know, it's all about the MASL, the metres above sea level at which you grow the coffee. Apparently, the higher altitude at which you grow the coffee, the more likely you are to get the sort of aromatic, fruity kind of flavours out of them. So, yeah. Like you can see, this one is a 440 milliliter can. I think I paid somewhere in the region of like 70, maybe 75 Swedish kroners for the 75 seems to come into memory. So 75 Swedish kroners is about €7.50. So that translates to a little bit shy of £7 sterling, and then somewhere in the region of maybe $8.50, $9 American. But yeah, it gives you instructions as well how to pour the nitro beer. So you shake it 3 times apparently, which I think we've done if I can count properly, and then we pour it vigorously and then wait a little bit. So yeah, I guess while we're waiting we can take a little look at the aroma then. So I just need to figure out how do I get this bit of paper off it so that I can get into it. It doesn't want to come off. That's a pain. That's a pain. Use my memory card adapter to get underneath. Aha, there we go. There we go. Got it. There we are. Right. That's one way to get into a beer, of course. But there you go. There's your nitro sticker. Might have been better to put that on the side of the can instead of on the top, actually. But yeah. So as you can see, gold top on the can. Let's get it out, and we'll get on with the tasting then. A little bit of a spurt on the opening there, but it's all right. So it says to pour vigorously as well. So let's just do this and see what it does. So, there you can see some of the nitro there. You can see the, let me see. Yeah, you can see the bubbles kind of going up towards the surface there. So nitro always takes a little bit of time to form the head. So yeah, very nice actually. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, it's poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour, as you would expect from an Imperial Stout, especially a coffee one, and the head that's formed on top of this has turned out to be about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would say, medium kind of fawn coloured head there. It is faded away to just be a kind of very thin, wispy, foamy layer, but it's leaving a nice kind of thick ring around the edge of the glass actually. But 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there. But I mean, overall, it does look very nice, and this is kind of the experience, the appearance, not the experience. This is the appearance that you would expect of a nitro stout, to be honest. So yeah, it looks very, very nice actually. Yeah, nothing surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider that it's an Imperial Stout. Lovely dark ebony rosewood colour, like I said. If you shine the light through it, you do get a little touch of a sort of Coca-Cola coloured edge coming out of this one. But yeah, it does look very, very nice. So yeah, remember the colour of your beer is dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use. That determines the magnitude of the colour of the beer. 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. And adjuncts and barrel aging can also play a role in here, but I think when it comes to an Imperial Stout, I don't think coffee beans are going to affect the colour of the beer all that much, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, nothing surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance, so let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one then. Ooh, that's a very nice smelling beer. I love coffee stouts, as I've said to you many times before. I really got into these on the back of the Key and the Sidamo Dim2 that were done with Hunters and Sons from Bristol in England with Dugas Brewery in Landvetter in Gothenburg. But yeah, this is a lovely beer actually. So yeah, in terms of the how do we say, in terms of the aroma from this one straight away, you know, it's the coffee beans that jump out at you right away, and they're very aromatic. So for me, the coffee beans have got a little bit of earthiness behind them. You can smell that there's a little bit of a big roasty earthiness in there. We'll cover the rest of the beer in a minute, but let's focus on the coffee beans, because coffee beans can be a very prominent component of the aroma in these sort of beers. But yeah, for me, there's a lovely, you know, it's got a lovely kind of smoothness to the roast. You can definitely smell that. There's a wee bit of earthiness in there, but overall I would say the notes that you get from the coffee in this one, they're big and aromatic, but there's also quite a bit of a kind of red fruity kind of character coming off them. I do get quite a little bit of it's almost like a raisiny sharpness or a blackberry kind of sharpness that you get off of the coffee in this one. So yeah, lovely smooth roasty earth underneath, a lot of aromatic character in there, but then you also get these sort of blackberry raisiny type notes coming out of the beer. So yeah, I really like how that goes together actually. It comes out very nicely in this beer. So yeah, the aroma of this one, how do you say, I think the aroma of this beer on the coffee side of things is absolutely lovely. Big nice pungent coffee, and that's what you want from one of these big coffee stouts, of course. But yeah, the aroma of that beer is just very nice and very inviting. So yeah, in terms of the actual malty side of the beer then, so you can definitely smell there's a wee bit of a roasty toasty sort of thing going on in this. I wouldn't be surprised if there's perhaps a little bit of special bee or carafa or something in there. There's a bit of a roasty toasty well fired bread crust. You do get, you know, there is a little bit of a kind of brown almost rye bready type note in there as well. The coffee, of course, is the central point of the beer, so these two notes I think sit underneath the coffee and the coffee sits on top of that. But there's a good bit of chocolate to this one, quite a high cocoa chocolate, you know, an 80-90% cocoa sort of thing. You get that lovely big dark chocolatey note coming out of the beer. So yeah, that works very well. That works very well on the that works very well on this one. So yeah, about an 80-90% cocoa chocolate in there. You get one or two little kind of hints of nuttiness out of this beer. Yeah, I do get a wee bit of a nuttiness and woodiness out of it. So yeah, lovely. As I say, just big, high, dark cocoa chocolate notes in there, 80-90%, a bit of nuttiness, a bit of woodiness, and yeah, I think it goes together very well in that sense actually. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this beer I think is very nice. That's just the malty side of things. I think there is maybe a wee bit of a brown sugary note to this one, a little bit of a treacle molasses kind of thing. I'm not sure if what happens with the wort boil in terms of nitro stouts, because obviously they're conditioned a bit differently, but usually when it comes to big imperial stouts you'll get maybe a 4 hour or so boiling time, something like this, to caramelise all the sugars. And with this beer you do get a little bit of a treacle molasses kind of note out of it, as well as a bit of a toasty brown sugar, but it doesn't come across as too thick. But I don't know if that is just because of the nitro conditioning or what, but regardless, the malty backbone of this beer smells quite nice, and it kind of smells to me, just on instinct, it kind of smells to me as if it's going to be quite a slick beer, this one. But with the nitro condition, of course, it will be probably very smooth. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, you get a little bit of earthiness out of this one. There is a little bit of floral aromaticity there, and a bit of a grassy kind of citrusy character in there too. Quite often, you know, Summit is quite a popular hop to use in big imperial stouts like this, and some of the floral notes you get out of this does remind me of American Summit actually, but I don't know what hop they've used in this one. I don't think they say on the back of the can either. It just says a complex and full-bodied stout brewed with freshly roasted coffee from our mates at Stockholm Roast. Doesn't say anything about the hops and things in this beer actually, and it didn't say anything on the Untappd when I took a quick look earlier. But yeah, a little bit of earthiness, nice bright floral aromatic green component, and some citrusy kind of zesty qualities from the grass as well. But yeah, on the how would you say, on the the fruity side of things, then it's got a little bit, as I say, you get some fruit from the kind of coffee beans, but it's got a nice little bit of a kind of you get a bit of a kind of well-fired brownie note out of this beer as well, but definitely some raisins, some plums in there as well, and a wee bit of a kind of black, sharper blackberry type note. So yeah, I really like how this beer goes together in that sense. There's some very nice, very nice kind of juicy fruity notes and other things going on in this beer too. So big thumbs up to Northern Exposure Brewing Company for this. I think this beer goes together very, very nicely. So yeah, so I think it's about time that we have a taste of this one then. So yeah, this one is the Transatlantic Express, 9% Imperial Coffee Nitro Stout from Northern Exposure Brewing Company in Ekerö near Stockholm in collaboration with Stockholm Roast. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah. So, what you'll notice with this one is, this is one of these beers where it comes in and it just feels like a very, very slick liquid. You're just like, oh, okay. And then the flavour really builds out of it a little bit later on. Let's put the rest of it into the glass, actually. There we go. So, there you are. But yeah, it is quite a nice beer, this one. That's one of the things with the Nitro Stouts. I always find, I wouldn't say this is the most complex Imperial Stout that you're going to come across, but in fairness, I've always found this with Nitro Stouts. I don't find them, I think the conditioning makes them just not quite as complex as some of the other ones, because the flavour takes a while to come out, I've always found with Nitro Stouts. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about nitro conditioning. I'm not the greatest fan of it, to be quite honest. But yeah, maybe I just need to try a few more beers that are conditioned with this. It's, as I say, I would just go for normal conditioning, but that's just me. But yeah, the flavour profile of this beer is very nice, actually. So yeah, I think it does take a wee while to build out, but this one, and it comes across as very slick in the beginning, but it does have a fair wee bit of complexity to its flavour profile. So let's try and break this down a little bit more and describe it for you. So yeah, as I say, when you take this beer in, it really just feels like a very, very slick kind of liquid going across the middle of your palate. But yeah, in the middle third of your tongue and the back third of your tongue, you can feel a nice roasty, toasty backbone to this one. It's got a very, very it really comes across as if there's a little bit of special bee or carafa or something like that that's forming the backbone of the beer. So definitely get that in this one. That seems to be the backbone of the beer, but sitting on top of that, of course, you get a layer of a sort of thicker kind of brown rye bready quality coming out of the beer, which I can really appreciate. And towards the back of that middle half of your palate, you get a nice kind of roasty, toasty coffee bean quality to this one. So yeah. So yeah, the coffee bean, as I say, if you focus on that, you can feel again it's quite on that back half. The middle third of your palate, you've got a nice big aromaticity to this one. There's a big kind of roasty, toasty quality to the beer as well, which I think is great. So yeah, it does have, as I say, it's got quite a bit of a roasty, toasty character to it. You get a nice little bit of earthiness in there, but you can feel a lot of the aromaticity from the coffee. The fruity notes are not quite as prominent in the flavour from the coffee as I thought they were going to be. So yeah, that's an interesting point. So it is more of an aromatic flavour, pardon me, that you get out of this beer rather than it, rather than it being very, how would you say, rather than it being very kind of fruity and things like this. Yeah, a more big floral aromatic kind of coffee bean that's in this one. That's quite interesting. How I always like thinking about this, how beers can vary in flavour from the aroma that you initially pick up. But yeah, the coffee bean, it's not the thickest of beers, this one, but again, as I say, the Nitro really just gives you that very smooth, kind of slick quality to it. But sitting on top of the, if you go into the front half of that middle third of your palate, you get a bit of nuttiness in there, you get a bit of woodiness sitting underneath the roasty, toasty malts, and then you get some, you get the nice kind of chocolatey notes sitting on top of that. So there's a big sort of kind of high cocoa chocolate notes. This one particularly on the back half of that third part. On top of the coffee beans, you get the nice high cocoa chocolate. There's 80-90% cocoa chocolate there, but as you move further forward, the sort of the intensity of the cocoa lightens up a little bit. You get a sort of 60, you get a kind of 50-60% cocoa one out of this. So yeah, that's quite an interesting thing to point out about this beer. You do get that 50-60% cocoa element out of this beer, and it's a nice sort of transition from the back of the middle third of your palate to the front, and then you've got these woody and nutty undertones there. But sitting in the dead centre of your palate, you get like a little circle, and that's where you get some of the brown sugary elements out of the beer. So it does feel as if there's a little bit of a kind of treacly molasses type thing to this one. That's the alcohol side of the beer, but as you move further out from that, it's a little bit more sort of caramelly and things like this. So yeah, and you do get a wee bit of a more toasty brown sugar as you move out towards the edge of the palate there. But yeah, the fruity side of the beer as well, you can feel that really starts to sharpen up a little bit the further you go into it. But I think for the moment, I think we've covered the middle third of your palate quite well. So if you go to that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you do get a little touch of a bready build up with this one, but not a lot. But there's quite a bitter, toasty, well-fired bread crust in there. Then as you go into the back third of your palate, you can feel there's quite a roasty, toasty, bitter bread crusty element there. But sitting on top of that, you get a few of the kind of yeasty elements there. But normally you get this transition where the beer is quite tall and airy in the back third of your palate and it condenses down. This beer, actually, the thickness of the flavour almost and the height of the flavour is kind of consistent all the way from the back third of your palate to the all the way throughout. So yeah, the back third of your palate is definitely more about the roasty, toasty, well-fired kind of bread crusty elements coming out of the beer. But yeah, let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. Back corner of your palate, there is a good little blast of earthiness in there, and as you move further forward, the earthiness kind of mellows out a little bit, and as you reach the front corners of the palate, it's got a little bit more of a kind of floral aromaticity to it, which I really like. So the as you reach the front corners of the palate, as I say, a little bit of a kind of floral aromaticity there, and of course with this being an Imperial Stout, and if you age this beer a little bit, that the kind of green component of the beer will drop out slightly, but around the front curve of the palate you actually do get a little bit of a citrusy, kind of zesty kind of thing out of this one. So I would be curious to know what hop it is they've used in this beer as the bittering thing, because it does have just a wee bit of that kind of zesty quality. But let's focus on the fruity part of the beer then. So as I always say, on that front third of your palate, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So on the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, there's a nice little bit of a kind of bread crusty element to it there. There's a wee bit of a kind of roasty toasty chocolate brownie kind of element too. But then the base of that front third of your palate, it's got quite a nice smooth kind of slickness underneath. But yeah, you can feel a little bit of the roasty toasty bread crusty character. Then on the back half of that front third of your palate, you've got a nice kind of oily, juicy plum character, and then you've got a wee bit of a kind of sharp, raisiny quality out of this one. So I really like how that goes together in this beer actually. But yeah, in terms of the yes, you've got a little bit of raisiny character on top of that. You've got a little bit of a kind of juicy plum quality underneath, and then as you move further forward, you get a little bit more kind of figgy quality out of it, and then as you reach the front half of that front third of your tongue, you get a little bit more of a kind of blackcurrant underneath, and then a sharper kind of blackberry coming out of it too. But the fruits are quite light and just kind of quite wet, to be honest with you, so it's the beer's interesting from that perspective too. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer, I think, is very, very nice. But yeah, I think that's the fruity part of this beer, I think, goes together really, really nicely in a sense. It just adds a little bit of kind of juiciness and sharpness to the beer, which I think offers a good wee bit of contrast. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour profile of this beer. This is quite a roasty, toasty stout, but it's very, very slick. I have to admit, I think the nitro conditioning in this one takes away a little bit from the complexity of the flavour, to be quite honest with you. I think this beer might have been better just as an ordinary stout, because I feel the nitro conditioning makes it feel a little bit thin, in honesty. So on this note, let's go on to the mouthfeel. So like I say, this beer, it comes across as, kind of quite mid-bodied. The carbonation is pretty much, non-existent. That's what nitro kind of does. It gives you just this very, very smooth and slick mouthfeel. But like I say, I feel that it takes away from a beer like this. For me, for a coffee stout, you want a wee bit of thickness to it. And I think that's from having tried so many other Scandinavian, Nordic Imperial stouts. You really get, you get a lot of, how would you say? You do get quite a lot of, just with these thicker Imperial stouts, it just feels, I don't know, I just like the feel of it a bit more. There's a lot of Scandinavian Imperial stouts that have a lovely big thick mouthfeel to them, and this one just lacks that a little bit, but I think that is because of the nitro conditioning. I think they've got a good flavour profile here, but I think it's the conditioning, the nitro conditioning, I think, sort of, in a way, kind of, it's a bit of, it sort of is a little bit detrimental to the beer, in my opinion. I think this would have been better without the nitro, to be honest. But yeah, as I say, good flavour profile to this one, but I think they've made the wrong choice with the conditioning here. Just my opinion, but remember, I'm a little bit biased because I don't like, generally speaking, I'm not the greatest fan of nitro conditioning. That's why I don't review so many of the beers that are nitro conditioned here on the channel. I think that was one of the things. I didn't realise this was nitro conditioned actually until I bought it. And if I'd known, I don't know if I would have, but I would have been curious to try my first Imperial Stout. I think this is the first Imperial Stout they've released through Systembolaget actually. But in terms of the hoppy bitter side of the beer, I think, overall in terms of IBUs, I think this beer is maybe a 50, maybe a 60 or even 70 IBU beer. I'd be tempted to say 70 because you get a bit of bitterness from the hop and you do get a good bit of bitterness from the coffee. Overall, the malty side of the beer it's got a good bit of roasty toasty character. There's a bit of smoothness in there and a bit of sweetness, and the fruity side for me is a little bit juicy and wet in a sense. So yeah, the beer, as I say, very, very nice flavour profile this one, but I think it would function far better as a regularly conditioned beer rather than a nitro. So I think we can round off this review there with that. So yeah, good beer again from Northern Exposure Brewing Company, but I would like to see them rebrew it and thicken it up with just, you know, regular conditioning. I think that the nitro doesn't really do it for me in this beer, I have to say, but that's just my opinion. You guys watching this might think a bit differently, so let me know your own thoughts on the nitro aspect of this beer and anything else you want to say in the comment section below. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. I would be curious to see more coffee stouts and more collaborations between Northern Exposure and Stockholm Roast, because I think the flavour profile, as I say, is good. If they can do a regular Imperial Stout, I think it would come across. It would be, you know, pretty damn solid actually. But yeah, as I say, flavour profile, this one is good. Just the conditioning, it's not my favourite part of this beer, that's all. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Northern Exposure Brewing Company as well. Hopefully I can go and visit Stockholm Roast at some point when I make it up there as well, and I will try and contact Craig and Kerrin at some point and see if we can do a Meet the Brewery segment. They were quite keen to do that before this whole COVID-19 pandemic broke out and things, so we'll see about sorting that in the future. But yeah, thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Stockholm Roast and Northern Exposure Brewing Company. Let me know your own thoughts on the beer in the comments section below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. This is the Transatlantic Express 9% Imperial Coffee Nitro Stout from Northern Exposure Brewing Company in Ekerö to the southwest of Stockholm here in Sweden. Slange, skull, cheers, and see you guys very soon.